Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Subitees video. And there's an Asmongold tweet that is absolutely setting the internet on fire. And what type of leeching content creator would I be if I didn't make a video throwing my own 2 cents in on the topic? Now, obviously, my point of view for this is that I want World of Warcraft to be as successful as it can be moving into the future so that it can give players the same types of awesome experiences that I have been able to get over my years having played it. There are some things in his post that I do agree with, and there are other ones that I disagree with. So my video here might be a little bit divisive. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on these topics as well as we move forward through this in the comments down below. So the first point here is basically ability pruning. Suggests limiting to 10 spells or less. Now, this is something that has been attempted in past expansions. Warlords of Draenor saw a significant reduction of spells per class from Mists of Pandaria, and even further from Warlords of Draenor to Legion. But from Legion moving forward, they've slowly added those abilities back because it felt like something was missing from the game. Now, the main problem with the pruning that they have done in the past is that the abilities that were left didn't evolve. They remained the same typical kind of buff debuff format, not really interesting, no sort of like skill shots or aiming or directional or visual enhancements for these spells. They more or less remained the same. So it just felt like every class was hollowed out, which I think was the main problem with the ability reductions that they have done in the past, because now we see Plunderstorm come out and we can see that when abilities are visual and they feel intense and there's some aiming elements to them, that there can be a lot of volume to a character with such a limited amount of spells when the spells are that dynamic. So I actually do agree on this front that I think a reduction, and this isn't for all classes. I think some classes already have pretty, lower levels amounts of keybinds, something like a Frost Death Knight or Fury Warrior. I think evolving the abilities could be an interesting and awesome direction for the game. There are games though that already have done this. WildStar, which had its servers shut off. So I don't know if this is 100% what saves WoW. Also, WoW, WoW's identity of buffs and debuffs is kind of the core system to it that everybody expects. So if you altered that too much too rapidly, I could see that having some negative side effects. But I do agree overall with bringing abilities down and making those abilities more dynamic, possibly being a really good direction for the game. I think his biggest hot take is that he wants 40-man raids back. Now, having seen his stream, I think his point with this is that he really likes, as in his own words, is bringing out the boys to Molten Core and then charging through all together and creating that kind of cool experience and cool moment. I would debate, being who he is, that he can actually recreate this himself whenever he wants. And he did actually do this in the classic beta in the Arathi Highlands against, I think it was Sony Digital, where they did Horde versus Alliance and they gathered their viewers and they had this really cool and awesome epic event. He's somebody that can tailor and create those moments really whenever he wants. And there are other players that do that, especially in the role-playing community, that build up their groups and, reenact these moments that they've created and these stories that they've created. And the World of Warcraft engine still supports your ability to do that. Now, I don't think actually making the competitive raiding modes, 40-man raid, would actually be that good for the game. I think that it's already really difficult for a lot of players to get people to show up for the raids. And then finding 40 people would just exacerbate that even further. I think there's also the point that with 40-player raids that you would be able to bring, the perfect comp wouldn't be a problem. But we've already seen in Season of Discovery, if anything, where people will be just like, I'm not inviting you. You're not playing the best spec. Oh, you didn't min-max that. Oh, you don't have that profession. I'm not inviting you. People are going to do that. That is by far a community issue. So to get around this, you've got to either be making your own guild and not following those types of stringent restrictions, because no matter how much they try and balance the classes, no matter what raid size it is, people are going to do that. And we've seen that in classic WoW as well with 40-player raids. I've seen groups that have like 20 plus warriors, because warriors do the highest DPS, and then the bare minimum of anything else that can buff the warriors that would justify bringing them to buff the warriors. So I get where the nostalgia feeling that he's trying to get, the vibe that he's trying to get with the 40-player raids, but I don't think in functionality that it's actually going to be better for the game overall in that direction. Now, the next point that ties a bit into the discussion of add-ons is that he makes a post saying the only audience that retail WoW caters to anymore is hardcore sweaty nerds who want to contrive the game into an esport or career, make WoW fun again. This is actually a post that I disagree with historically. So in the original versions of World of Warcraft, you had one raid difficulty. You were either good enough to clear that raid, or you didn't even get to see the content. You didn't get to get any of the tier gear. You didn't get to get any of the mounts. It was extremely elitist in its original iterations of World of Warcraft. And it's not even just PvE, PvP. To get the Grand Marshal title, you had to spend 24/7 in Alterac Valley grinding. Does this sound really casual, or does this sound hardcore sweaty, in order to get your Grand Marshal title, in order to get the Grand Marshal set available at that time? As we moved in and they introduced Arena, you used to have to get certain rating thresholds in order to get certain pieces of equipment. So if you were more casual, didn't really have a lot of time to develop skill or push rating, you wouldn't even be able to get gear. You had to get 2200 rating just to even get a pair of shoulders. That is really hardcore sweaty nerd gameplay right there. Gladiator in the past used to be a top percentage cutoff in order to get, and I remember when they switched it to being 2400 rating with 50 wins above it, that a lot of the hardcore sweaty nerd arena players were like, oh my god, you're removing the prestige of this title. What are you doing? This is absolutely not catering to us in the top 1%. So I completely disagree with this. The game in its oldest iterations had been the most elitist the game has ever been, and it has consistently made steps, expansion over expansion, to try and be more friendly to players that aren't hardcore sweaty, that are more casual. You add Raid Finder. You don't got a lot of time to log in or manage a guild, but you still want to see the raid. You can get into the raid on Raid Finder. You still want really epic looking transmogs and cool mounts. We're going to give that to you through more casual means of content as well. So I don't agree with this, which then leads into the add-on discussion, right? So, you know, this point that add-ons are bad for the game. I think that designing the raids with add-ons in mind is definitely a problem, but add-ons themselves help inexperienced players. So it's like, if you remove add-ons, there's gonna be a lot of players who can't get to certain, you know, rating thresholds or kill certain bosses anymore because they were relying on that add-on to help them, which doesn't sound really casual friendly, does it? That sounds like, you know, I remember it back in the day in arena tournaments that you used to play with no add-ons, and if you played with add-ons, elite players would kind of like snub you, and you'd be like, you play with that add-on? Like, why are you playing with that add-on? Like, what, you need that crutch or something? Add-ons were seen as like this casual friendly thing and the opposite of elitism. So if you were to remove all add-ons to some extent, it's actually playing more into, you know, the elitism of people who want to play the game without add-ons because they know they can outperform the people that don't have them. So I don't know about that, but overall, I mean, having to design the bosses with add-ons in mind, I think is starting to get a bit ridiculous, especially if you considered, like, what if the people who make the add-ons just stop making them? I mean, I would imagine that it's a pretty complicated thing to make an add-on. So designing the game with add-ons in mind and doing that type of stuff does seem to be a little bit ridiculous. So I don't, you know, all add-ons, I don't know if you should do that. There's also certain add-ons that help people who may have particular conditions. There are players who play who are actually blind, and they use specific add-ons to be able to help navigate them in the world better. So I don't know if it should be like an all add-ons thing. This is probably something that needs to be more nuanced and more discussed specifically. But I wanted to throw my own 2 cents into the ring here for this discussion. I think the biggest problem right now, at least from what I've been able to gather from Asmongold, is that he wants World of Warcraft to capture the feeling that he used to get when he played it. But my point of that, or counter to that, would be that he needs to play the game the way that he used to play it, which was make his own guild, no stream, try and play the game out and do the hard content, because that's what he used to do. He used to try and do the hard content. Don't make it about trying to entertain your stream and being worried about performing at the highest level in front of your stream. Make it about hanging out with your homies in your guild and just playing the game. If you want it to feel like it used to, you're going to have to play it like you used to. It would be my point to that, or at least try in order to see if it's actually true or not. But regardless of that, obviously, I think his intentions are obviously to make WoW as successful as it can be, or at least I'm going to hold that as the truth, and those are my intentions as well. So thank you very much for watching. What do you guys think in the comments down below? Let me know, and I will see you in the next one.